Hi everyone. The other day I posted a reel of some daisies and a lot of people asked if I would do a tutorial. So that's what I wanted to do today, is a little daisy tutorial. So we are gonna need Winsor Yellow Deep, any kind of green you want, some yellow ochre, and I'm gonna say like a burnt sienna, some kind of a dark brown, maybe a sepia, all right? And a little bit of Davy's gray is what I use for the petals. So this is super loose and everything is going to look a little different. Yours are going to look different than mine, and that's okay. I just want to show you quickly how you could do a daisy if you want to. So I started that video and I think I did 5 daisies. I'm just going to do one. I started with the center and I just did some yellow dots. I'll make it a little larger than I normally would because I'm just going to do one. I normally wouldn't. I'll try to make it big enough so you can see, okay? All right, and this is a pigeon letters. This is a size 10, so this is a big round brush. All right, then I'm gonna go back and get nothing but water, okay? So this is, it's pretty wet. My brush is pretty wet. I don't know if you can see. And I'm just gonna touch the edge of some of that yellow, and I'm gonna push down maybe twice, make kind of a fat petal. And that's gonna be hard to see because again, it's just water, but I'm gonna do a few of these and I'm not gonna worry they're gonna be kind of haphazard, okay? And even I am having a hard time seeing it, but I think that's fine. These are gonna be really wonky and that's kind of the fun of it. So it's a double swipe petal. It's the same way I do leaves. I'm gonna touch the tip of the brush here and then I'm just gonna pull it out and then I'm gonna put kind of the side on it, right? And I'm just trying to see where my petals are. This is gonna show up a little more in a minute when I add some color to them. So it's hard to do white flowers in watercolor because your paper is usually white. And so it makes it kind of tricky. So, but if you look at white flowers, they're never really totally white. They have shades and shadows. And a lot of times that's either a yellow shade or shadow or a grayish. So we have some of the yellow here now from the center, and I'm going to get a super watered down Davy's gray. We can always add more pigment. It's a little bit harder to take pigment out. So I'm going to touch the ends of these petals, if I can even see where they are, with just a little bit of the Davy's gray. All right. So you might be able to see that a little better now, but I'm sure it's still very reflective because it's wet. All right, I'm gonna add a little more because the truth is it's gonna run a little and it's gonna dry also quite a bit lighter, right? All right, so I'm still keeping a lot of water on my petal so this doesn't get too dark. I'm adding a little at the edges, right? Because that's where the petals would be maybe curving a little or moving farther away from you. All right, so I think you can see that. I'm gonna add a little more gray. Again, I'm keeping it really light. I'm gonna put some here at the top. And again, along the edges where the petals would touch each other. And we can even do some cleanup on that later because we have so much water here. We can lift some with a dry brush. If you dry your brush off really good on the paper towel, you can pick up paint and pigment. All right, so that's looking pretty good actually right now. I want to go ahead and put the stem in. I'm going to use, because this is like a bold yellow and we're going to put in some darker like browns around it, I'm going to use like a almost contrasting, not exactly, bluish green. I think that just looks really nice with the daisy. Not to have a really yellowy green, so I'm going to use like a sap green, and I'm probably going to put some indigo, all right, some indigo in it. And let's see if the stem of this, I'm just going to kind of off center it here, and it's fine that it's going to touch this, and I'm just going to put it down like this. So it's kind of a light touch at the top, light touch at the bottom, thicker stem through the middle. I can't actually remember what daisy stems look like, but I like that stem, so that's what we're going with. And we'll touch it again in a little bit, but I kind of just like that. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, so let's get a smaller brush. Let's get a 2 and go in with some, I'm gonna start with some, I think it's a little like burnt umber. It's pretty dark. I'm gonna get, it's pretty wet. Like I'm not gonna do it too intense of a pigment. I'm just gonna come around in here and I'm gonna touch around the edge of the center of the flower. And I am gonna touch a little bit into the flower itself to add a little bit of dimension, like that. And I'm gonna kind of blend a little bit of the dots just so it's not too like speckly looking. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna stick with my 2 and I'm gonna keep going with my gray, watery gray. And I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna add a little like center-ish. And this you just kind of have to play around with, like where you want that color, where you want that highlight. I'm gonna put it between, again, the petals. And then also at the end of the petals, just to highlight that there's an edge here, right? And I'm kind of making it up a little as I go along. That was off of that petal. But I do want a decent amount of color here so you can see what these petals are doing, all right? Okay, and so now I'm gonna go in with an even darker brown. I think I'm gonna take a sepia and I'm gonna really connect up with my petals here. I'm gonna kind of zigzag it around and I'm gonna put some at the far edge of the top to put a little dimension in, to a little more dimension into the daisy itself. Maybe some yellow ochre might work in here. You have to decide how much contrast you want in your flower and how much white you want to keep in here. If you want it, you know, more white on one side, or if you just want to fill it the whole top. And I'm going to keep adding the darker pigment. It's going to keep bleeding away into the flower. So the last thing we have to do is add a leaf. You can add some coming off the bottom if you want. I like to add them from the top. I think daisy leaves are kind of zigzaggy, so we'll just keep it really easy. I'm still using a 10, which is pretty large, and I maybe wouldn't normally, but this is just such a loose painting. I don't want it to be super precise and botanical looking. So we'll have a leaf coming off here, and I'm literally going to like, I'm just gonna kind of wave it in like this. And you can probably hear my dog just came in the room, Henry. Hi, Henry. There he goes. I'm gonna add some really dark pigment here where the leaf is behind these petals, where it's shadowed. And I'm just gonna pull that leaf out like that. If we want to, we can even cross it over the stem. And again, I wanted to sort of darken along the inside of this stem. It's a little fatter than maybe I would normally make it. So I'm gonna go back now with just a little bit of water as well. I do this in my daffodil tutorial too, where I show kind of how to shadow a stem. So you can check out that video as well if you're interested. And now I think I'm just gonna go a little tighter in around this petal. And that leaf is kind of coming out like that. And that has a lot of variation. It was very wet, and then I went back in with the darker pigment, but I like all that variation, and I like the dark shadow behind the petal there. It kind of makes it pop out. So that's just a quick and easy daisy. You can have as much or as little contrast up here in the center as you want, but I like it bleeding out, and you can see it, there's a lot of gray in the petals, but that kind of makes it pop off the page and you don't lose it in the white. So I hope that you will check out some of my other tutorials and subscribe to my channel here, and happy painting, everyone.